But anyway, I'm back, and I'm going to stick around for 21 years, change my cells 3 more times, and then completely retire before my inevitable cognitive decline gets the better of me, and I don't know better when to stop talking in public. Now, I don't want to compare myself to Noam Chomsky in any context, believe me, I'm not that arrogant. I am arrogant, but I'm not that arrogant. But that poor motherfucker has destroyed his legacy. He's far past the point of being senile. He's pushing 100, and the stuff he's coming up with is preposterous. He went from being one of my most influential figures, the man who taught me the shape of global power and how it's distributed on the planet. He's gone from being this incredible influence on my intellectual understanding of politics and media and history and so many other facets of society to being my mortal enemy. He literally wants me removed from the culture, segregated, and left to starve to death because I refuse to submit to an experimental gene transfer injection manufactured by serial corporate criminals. And one of the things, ironically, that has influenced me not to submit to experimental gene transfer injections manufactured by serial corporate criminals was the influence and the education of Noam Chomsky at critical formative periods of my mental development. So it's incredibly sad to me that nobody in Chomsky's world, he should have retired years ago. The last sensible thing I ever remember him saying was talking about how liberal dissatisfaction with Obama was going to usher in some sort of neo-reactionary, super-conservative, pseudo kind of Nazi presence in American politics. Essentially, he predicted the rise of Donald Trump years before we even knew Donald Trump was going to run in 2016. That was the last time Noam Chomsky was relevant. Keep in mind, he was set to retire before 9/11. It was in the wake of 9/11, and the amount of perspective that people needed, and Chomsky had some answers for 9/11, why it happened, putting it into a wider historical context as blowback against regressive, hegemonic, imperialistic, US-led aggressions globally. He put it in that kind of context and helped people understand why these horrible acts, these atrocities occurred on American soil. And that, of course, gave him a whole newfound relevance that perpetuated his pontifications for decades after that, when he should have retired at the very least in 2008. Like I said, that comment he made about Obama, that was the last sensible thing he said. From there, it's just a progressive downhill slope of one idiotic remark after the next, where the man who taught us all how to think critically about corporate media headlines now literally believes every single corporate media headline that he reads. And the fact that he wants me ejected from society and left to starve to death, now he's become my mortal enemy. And I can only imagine that when he does finally shuffle off this mortal coil, what can I do other than celebrate that? If you want me to starve to death, I'm not going to mourn your demise, motherfucker. I'm going to celebrate it. But the poor bugger doesn't realize that he's a senile buffoon now, and nobody in his camp, I guess, recognizes it or is willing to just have the conversation with him. Or maybe they have and he's just rebuffed them and ignores them. Being senile and so on, he doesn't know better. So that's the scary thing. You may never know when you're at that place that he's at. How is he supposed to know? That's part of one of the symptoms of being senile. You no longer possess the higher brain functions to know when you're talking absolute shite. So this is why, no matter what, I'm retiring in 21 years. That may already be pushing it. I feel I'm already in cognitive decline. It's highly possible that 80% of everything I've said on this particular show is completely deranged. And if that's the case, well, I'm going to tell you, it's only going to get a lot worse because I'm going to do this for another 21 years. And again, I don't mean to compare myself to Noam Chomsky in any context because the man was an absolutely brilliant, unbelievably intellectually gifted human being, where they should even take his brain out of his skull when he's dead and try to figure out how he was able to absorb such an incredible amount of detailed information. It's like what Amy Goodman, the pre-Trump derangement syndrome Amy Goodman, because she used to be good too. Trump derangement syndrome fucked everybody up. But Amy Goodman referred to Chomsky as the memory of the world. And that's an incredibly observant perspective, actually, because that's what he is. He's the political, historical memory of the world. He is unique. Even when you compare him to other highfalutin intellectuals of his generation, Noam Chomsky occupies a rarefied air beyond all of them. Or at least the pre-senile Noam Chomsky. This fucking corpse that's yipping and yapping on YouTube now. Somebody's got to put that guy out of his misery.